In this video, we're going to look at the Bitcoin wealth pyramid. We're going to observe the Bitcoin ownership distribution across wallets. Right now, you might think that owning a small piece of Bitcoin might be insignificant, but in fact, we will show you how you are in fact ahead of the majority of the global population. You can also use this as a guide to see where you rank in terms of Bitcoin ownership and where your future stacking can place you in the future. So without further ado, let's get into it. First of all, a quick mention about Bitcoin adoption in general. This chart was taken from Glassnode, and while crypto adoption has experienced significant fluctuations in recent years, the trend is absolutely clear. As of July 10th, according to Glassnode, there have been over 1.4 billion total number of addresses that have ever appeared in a transaction, which shows a tremendous increase over time. Now, while this chart is key to understanding the total number of addresses, it doesn't really reflect well on how many owners of Bitcoin there are. This is key for a number of reasons. For example, one person can have many addresses and wallets. Many exchange services can hold Bitcoin in one address that belongs to many different people. Also, many people don't move their Bitcoins off in exchange. So for the purpose of this video, we are looking to calculate our metrics on the number of addresses with a positive balance and use that as our baseline to determine where we land. I'm using this value as we're in the game of trying to actively stack Bitcoin, so we only want to compare ourselves to those who are also active around us. To clarify, according to New Hedge, there are over 54 million unique addresses that have positive Bitcoin holdings. As you can see via this chart, this is also on the rise, with more and more people and businesses embracing Bitcoin and using crypto in their day-to-day services. It's now becoming ordinary and no longer something to discuss, in my opinion. Pretty much like fiat currencies. I'm sure you don't go around to your mates saying, "Whoa, did you see that huge dip in the pound-dollar exchange rate?" No. While an increase in price for Bitcoin and crypto is important to drive new users, there are some genuine real case factors that also drive adoption. Number one, awareness and education. Accepting something new in general starts with awareness and then follows curiosity and then a change in behavior. Nowadays, a lot of reliable sources of information are talking about crypto like it's normal, and more educational institutions are also offering crypto-related courses. This increasing awareness and knowledge about crypto also drives more people to explore its various use cases. Speaking of use cases, point number two is the growing crypto use case. So cryptocurrencies continue to have grown in their use cases over years, from mainly used for trading, to being used for games, to now being a formal method of payment for stuff like shopping, traveling, and accepting salaries even. Not to mention, you can even pay bills with crypto now. Thirdly, the lack of accessibility in traditional financial systems. Many people worldwide don't have access to traditional finances due to various factors such as geography or lack of documentation. Cryptocurrencies do provide a valid opportunity for individuals to participate in the global economy. With just a smartphone and internet access, they can create a crypto wallet and engage in financial activities, whether they need to send funds to friends or receive payments. All of these different notions are why we see a general increase in cryptocurrency adoption and how it will continue in future. Now, many of you may have seen this chart before, but these are the common terms associated with people who own Bitcoin. We've all heard of Bitcoin whales. Those ones usually move in the market, but did you know that there were other names ranging right the way down to the smallest holdings? I've scoured the internet to find if there are any known names for addresses that are less than 1 Bitcoin, as shrimp kind of all-encompassing doesn't really hit the mark. I did, however, stumble across what's known as a Bitcoin plankton, which represents addresses with holdings up to 0.01. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to also need a way to differentiate between those owning 0.01 Bitcoin and 0.1 Bitcoin. So we decided to create our own category known as Bitcoin Krills. Bitcoin Krills will be categorized as holdings between 0.01 and 0.1 Bitcoin. Therefore meaning shrimps will be anything above 0.1 to 1 Bitcoin. Additionally, in this comparison, we're also grouping those above 10 Bitcoin in one bracket. So let's kick it off. So right off the bat, we have the biggest majority of the population in this bracket. With over 8.2 billion people in the world, a number of these individuals will never have exposure to cryptocurrency for a number of reasons. These could be reasons like oppressive states, generally having no interest, lack of internet access, or simply too old or too young yet. If we calculate the active number of Bitcoin addresses, as mentioned earlier, being 54 million, against the global population, then if you don't own any crypto, you're in great company, with over 99.3% of the rest of the world being called no-coiners. So already, if you do hold Bitcoin, you can count yourself in the 1% club. So next up, as you can see here, we have the aforementioned Bitcoin Planktons. These are accounts with an address up to 0.01 Bitcoin. So first of all, massive congratulations for being in this cohort. If you have 0.01 Bitcoin, you can officially be classed as a millionaire in sats. Now, according to Bitcoin distribution indicators, this is where the majority of people who own Bitcoin live, with over 77% of all Bitcoin addresses having less than 0.01 Bitcoin. This is naturally the starting point for many, which is why the distribution is so large, but could also account for users with multiple addresses, for example. In total here, we have about 43 million accounts in this cohort. What's even cooler though, is that in this group of holders, you are part of the top 0.5% of the global population. Next up, we have the newly formed Bitcoin Krills. To reach 0.1 Bitcoin itself is a huge goal for many, as naturally the supply of Bitcoin is diminishing as more people come into the space. Many people suggest that 0.1 Bitcoin will be all you need in future. So to put into context, 0.1 Bitcoin is about £9,000 today, so it can be seen as an attainable goal for the mid to long term. If, however, you are already here, this is where the number of holders drastically decrease. In order to determine who holds between 0.01 and 0.1 Bitcoin, I had to do some creative work. I combined two charts as seen here, which in isolation outline the number of addresses that hold 0.01 Bitcoin and 0.1 Bitcoin respectively. If we have these numbers right, about 12 million addresses in total own over 0.01 Bitcoin, and about 4.4 million addresses hold over 0.1. So subtracting the two, we should have about 7.6 million addresses that can be considered Bitcoin Krills. It's crazy to think that increasing your ownership from the last bracket or the Bitcoin Plankton cohort, that you go from 77% of the addresses all the way down to the top 14%, or becoming about 63% more rarer by going from 0.009 to 0.012. Crazy. So heading back to normal, we have the Bitcoin Shrimps. So again, these account for addresses over 0.1 Bitcoin and up to 1 Bitcoin. These addresses already have a considerable amount of Bitcoin, and in my opinion are considered in very rarefied air. As you can see via the chart, the number of addresses dipped since the last all-time high. That may have probably been due to some profit taking perhaps, but as you can see it still remains higher than last cycle. At the time of checking, in this category, these account for 3.4 million addresses, which is about half the previous cohort. In total, if you hold between 0.1 and 1 Bitcoin, you can be considered in the top 0.041% of the global population, and also in the top 6 of wallet addresses. Bitcoin crabs represent those between 1 Bitcoin and 10 Bitcoin. You'll see in this chart too that this is another cohort that is slightly decreasing. In my opinion, this might also be due to some profit taking, seeing as though you have a considerable amount of Bitcoin already. Here though, you are just outside the top 1% of all Bitcoin holders, but you are in the top 0.009% of the global population. So still extremely significant. Now in this final category, we have the remaining Bitcoin wallet holders, which are those above 10. As you can see by the chart here, there's a total of 152,000 accounts with over 10 Bitcoin. If you have above 10 Bitcoin, your legendary status is solidified, as you are part of the top 0.0018 of the entire world. On top of that, you're also amongst the top 0.28% amongst your Bitcoin peers. You can also consider yourself a fiat millionaire in Bitcoin as well. To be correct, you need about 11.1 Bitcoin, which equates to just over £1 million at the time of checking, where the price of one Bitcoin is about £90,000. If you wanted the additional context, if you wanted a breakdown of what 152 wallet addresses look like in terms of distribution of Bitcoin, here's just that. So those between 10 and 100, you're looking at about 130,000 addresses. Over 100 Bitcoin, 80 and a half. Over 1,000, 2,100. And the ultra rarefied, over 10,000 Bitcoin, the humpback whales, 94. In summary, if you hold on to any amount of Bitcoin, you're in the 1% club. So congratulations for that. What we do also see is across the lower echelons of Bitcoin addresses, the planktons, the krills, even up to shrimps, we see large-scale accumulation. While larger accounts are selling some, the general number of addresses are still stacking, and holding Bitcoin is continuing to be the trend. With that in mind, what we can deduce, if we could summarize all of the following, we know that Bitcoin adoption is increasing, and we also know that Bitcoin distribution is increasing. You can see from this chart here from Chainalysis last year, the adoption rate of Bitcoin is quite varied, with more heavier adoption in countries like Asia and the Americas. One thing that does seem certain, from my perspective, is that today represents two things. Firstly, is the most amount of people in history that have adopted cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in general. But today also represents the least amount of people that will use it in future, because more and more people are adopting Bitcoin and cryptocurrency on a day-to-day basis. Overall, I hope you enjoyed taking a journey with me and seeing the Bitcoin distribution. Where do you rank? Let me know below. I'll catch you in the next one.